All right, guys. Welcome back. A couple of things I want to try to accomplish today, and I think it might be a little bit ambitious. So we'll see if we get there. The first thing I wanted to do was actually an idea that I got when I was looking at Ava's checkerboard. So I want to show you guys just some design options, some of the things you can do there. So I'm going to work on that, and then the other thing that I wanted to do was do the string interpolation, the JavaScript template strings. So hopefully we'll get to all of that today. So I don't plan on really fully developing the background thing that I'm going to show you guys first. I'm just going to show you guys how to do it, and then you can kind of take it from there if you want to, and then we'll focus on string interpolation after that. All right. So first things first, string interpolation. I know.
They just made it long because they could.
Well, I don't know. I think you should name your first child string interpolation. String interpolation gray. All right. And call him Turpy. But I think we made that joke last week.
Yep.
Turpy, and then he should go to Maryland, so he'll be a terrapin. So, all right. Turpy the terrapin. All right, so back to things that are more. What I'd like to do is I would like to make a pretty sweet Star Wars board out of this checkerboard.
So we should leave the salt out and put sugar in.
Yes, we should leave the salt out and put sugar in. So here's what we're going to do. First off, we're going to change the CSS for our cells.
Are you sharing your screen?
I'm not. I'm not sharing my screen.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
We'd have to split it and we'd have to like split it and break the screen.
There you go.
To share it. So I don't think we should do that.
You know, Caleb, you have a particular gift when it comes to jokes. So I'm going to actually make a change, okay, for my red and black cells, which are not red and black. I'm going to change them here to go back to a color, okay? And in fact, we're going to make them black and white. So, background color. And just to start with, I'm just going to use the shortcut there of background color. And I'll make that black, not Blake.
Like, are you sure
Black.
Blake would be a great color?
Yes, I used to have a soldier named Blake. Good guy. All right. So back over here. Take a look at our board. We should have good black and white cells, which is what we're looking for. Okay. Now the next thing that we want to do is we are actually going to make them just a little bit. We're going to use RGB, and let me show you guys. HTML color RGB. RGBA actually is what you want. Okay.
What's the A for?
Something after B.
I thought A came before B.
So RGB stands for red, green, blue, right?
And then A stands for awesome.
A stands for basically how the color density or the opacity. I'm not sure. It probably says A equals opaque. Not sure. It doesn't say here what it stands for, but you can look that up. That's a bonus point question for you. But you can take a look. So here's black right up here at the top with RGB 000, right? So that would be entirely opaque. Okay, but if you move the A value all the way over to 0, you would have something that was not entirely white, actually, just entirely clear. Okay, it's only showing as white because the background of this page is white. Okay, don't want you guys to be confused about that. In fact, it's particularly difficult for them to show the effect of RGB with a white background, and they're trying to show how it affects white. That's interesting that they didn't figure that out. But so we're going to look for a slightly maybe something in the middle, like let's say 0.5. Okay, so we're going to go with that RGB 000 and 0.5. So RGBA 0, 0, 0, and 0.5. Now, one of the things people like about RGB over the hex codes is, well, hexadecimal numbers are just kind of a little challenging. You know, you've got like, you know, you've got your red, green, blue, but you might have to specify like A, you know, F, you know, 3, you know, and it's hard to think what that means. But with RGB, it's using decimals and it's numbers from 0 to 256, okay, which is easier, you know, for people to wrap their head around. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just take a look at the effect that this had on our board. You'll notice. All right, so wait for it. Looks like it's still loading.
It's a great board.
I'm not sure why it's taking so long to load. I just refreshed it again. Okay, you'll notice
Did you make
that
all
I've.
the squares that color?
It looks like I did. Looks like I made them all. Yeah, I did. So this should be 255. 255. But you can actually see some of them are just a little darker, right? 255, 255. Yep. Save that. There you go. So now we've got a black and white checkerboard. Okay. But we can see. Yeah, you're right. I did those backwards, didn't I? But we can still see the background through there, and that's kind of what we're going for. Okay. There we go. Okay, we can still see the background, but it's just not as as clear. But where the boundaries of the cells is clear. So now we're going to go ahead and put a different background back there. So we're going to grab a couple of images here. Let me put my yeah, that's fine. Let's grab a few images that I snagged over here. So that one. And 2 images. Yep. That one. And this one. All right, so we got a couple more images there. So let's go ahead and grab this Death Star image as the background. Instead of black marble, we'll use the Death Star.
One deadly star.
Yep. You guys have watched Star Wars, right?
What? What's Star Wars?
Don't make me start cracking homeschool jokes. All right, so, okay.
That's not the Death Star.
That's not the Death Star, but the Death Star is in this image. It's just way over here off to the side somewhere. Let me go back to, this is not a square image, so we set the background size. Oh, this one doesn't have background size. Background size is going to be, I'm going to try contain, and we'll see how that does. All right, so, and it's got repeat on, okay, so, but you can see, again, like I said, I'm not going to take this all the way, I'm just showing you guys, get a good square image, but you can see how I can now see the Death Star in the background. I can actually see it twice because it's got repeat on.
It's the Death Star battling the Death Star.
I can do background.
So which one dies? Or to get those back?
Repeat. No repeat.
I can see these stars.
Background. Position. I think this is just center. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, there you go. So you can imagine if even if I just put a starry background behind this, like I could have something just with that. But obviously, what I would do if I was really going to spend some time on this was I would take a square chunk out of this image that was exactly what I wanted. It showed a little of the planet and a little, most of the Death Star, and or whatever. Or maybe the Death Star would just come a little, like, peek in off the side of the page here a little bit. Who knows? Okay, that's for you designers to worry about. Okay, but now let's put some TIE fighters and X-wing fighters in here for our pieces. So instead of a ghost stone white, we are going to do actually X-wing, and ghost stone black. We'll do TIE fighters. Refresh that junk, and all right. So there you go. Okay, we've got a Star Wars. Now this would be much better if those images. I feel like it would be better if the images were at least mostly opaque, right? And I felt like I was moving around actual X-wing. Like, so if I had sorry, not mostly opaque, mostly translucent, so that I could see the background behind it. And I just saw the ships. And that'd be a pretty sweet checkerboard. You're still just playing checkers, which isn't terribly exciting, but I can now move my TIE fighters around, and my TIE fighters are, killing my X-wing fighters or whatever. So anyway, there you go. There's an example of kind of how you can take and push this design in a different direction, and you can actually layer more than one image, in doing that.
So if you wanted to put 100 images in the background,
I wouldn't try that, because it's at some point your page is going to have a hard time loading. It's going to just take too long to pull it all down. So, but there you go, guys.
if you're a sloth, you have time to wait.
That's true. If you are a three-toed sloth, then you wouldn't even notice the loading time. All right, now I'm going to show you guys a fancy feature of Git.
If it loads too fast, it'll frighten the sloths.
That's true.
Yeah, so you want it to load slowly.
So here is a sweet feature of Git. So I've got these 4 commits, or 4 changes that I've made today. You can see I've added these images, and but I don't really I'm not done with it, and I don't really want to do anything with this right now. Okay, so what I can do is I can actually create a branch, right? So I'm going to say branch, and I'm going to call it Star Wars.
Can you get any leaves to grow on the branches?
Yes, you can do leaves, but not the leaves that you're thinking about. And then I can commit this here. Okay, so initial commit of star. Actually, I'll just put change theme to Star Wars. All right, commit that there. Oh, I need to commit the changes to the board also. I didn't have those selected. Sorry guys, I'm using source tree here, which is a little different from GitHub Desktop. I forgot to load that, but you can do the exact same thing at GitHub Desktop.
Does source tree connect to GitHub, or do you have this in Bitbucket as well? Oh,
Yep. Added. All right. That'll make people think it's The Empire Strikes Back, but really it's just the changes to the board. All right, so now if I go back over here to my my code, I still see all my changes there, and if I go refresh my page, it's still going to look just like it looks right now. Okay, but I'll let that. If I go. You guys can watch that reload. There, it's done reloading. But if I go back to source tree and I change branches back to the master branch, which is what I was working on, then I go back over here to WebStorm. You'll notice all those files are changed back, and I refresh this, and I'm going to get my board back the way it was. Okay, so I can start down a path and think, oh, okay, I want to I just want to experiment with this. I want to play with this, see how it goes. But I can still have this other branch where I'm doing all my work for that's and I can show you guys later on how to merge those. It's really easy. Okay, or you could just ask YouTube. Okay.
YouTube, how do you do that?
How do you merge? Yep, there you go. I bet if you have an Android phone and you say, "Hey Google, how do I merge?" It'll show you some YouTube videos. Now, that is it for the cool backgrounds. Okay, so if you guys are inclined to, play with that and hey, knock yourselves out, have a good time. All right. With that said, let's go back to cleaning up the code here, and
should we grab like a dust rag?
we
Or do you
should
like heavy
we should grab some
layers?
JavaScript templates is what we should do. So what we had here last week was we noted we were commenting on the fact that we've got this really repetitive code here. Okay, so let's see if and if we look at it, there's actually lots of different types of repetition, right? Obviously, a row repeats, but cells repeat too, right? And checkers repeat as well, right? So there's like repetition inside repetition inside repetition. Okay, so let's just see if we can create a checker, okay, using our just using JavaScript. Okay, so which is really pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to let me do a whole row to start with. All right. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to add a new file. Remember I said I wanted to do this in a separate JavaScript file just to keep my template a little more clean. So I'm going to have this template.js and I will have, I'm just going to declare a variable. And I'm going to call it row template. And I'm going to start, remember we use backticks. And the way I usually do it is I start it like this. I'll have a backtick on the first row and a backtick here, okay? But then I actually put my code in between, okay? The reason for that is if I start up here, then there's that the first line won't have any indentation, okay? Or it would look like this, which is just kind of weird, right? So I like it to look like it's going to look when it's output, okay? So now, that's row 1. Now let's go into and we're just going to do really kind of baby step forward on this, okay? So we'll go to our board and we're going to go ahead and just comment this out. Okay, comment that row out, refresh, and we should see a 7-row checkerboard. Okay, so
Seems like an unfair advantage for the black.
it does seem, but that's okay because we can fix that really quick. Okay, we are ready for you, black.
But now you can't move any pieces.
There we go. Black moves first. All right. So the code's still there, but we've just hidden it for right now. We do have, let's see, this row here. Actually, I'm going to do this. It should actually give me something you can't really see. All right, cool. So there is a row. I added the row, but it's squished, right? Remember we talked about how divs and things collapse if there's nothing inside them. Okay, so I added that row back right here, but there's nothing in it, so it just collapses into basically a 0 pixel line. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look now at our template.js. And now I'm going to remove these because I added them back. Okay, so this is basically the inner contents of a row. Okay. The reason I did that is because I need to be able to reference that first row. Okay. Then down here in JavaScript land.
Ooh, have you ever been to JavaScript land?
It doesn't sound
Sounds
as
like a
fun as
magical
Candyland.
It doesn't
Candyland
sound
sounds
as fun as
far much
Candyland.
more fun.
But let me pull this out here. There's a script. Oh, okay. That's all right. So there's our board container, and we've got our different rows. I've just collapsed things so I can see things a little bit better. So I'm just going to add a script down here at the bottom, and I need to definitely reference template.js. Okay, because we just added that. And we're probably going to want that to be before board.js, and I'm not going to go into why that is later, but really, since we're just declaring variables in there, they need to be declared before board.js can do anything with them, and that's probably where we're going to put all this code. But we want to go ahead in here, and we want to say, hey, listen, I want to put the contents of that row template inside of row 1. So script. All right, and we're going to use a little jQuery. What do we use to reference something by ID in jQuery? What?
Get element by ID?
No, we don't need to. We use, anybody else? What symbol? What do we use to reference IDs in CSS?
Like a dot something or other.
Not the dot, that's a class.
The hashtag?
Pound.
The pound, yeah.
Yes, this is before we had hash. We still called them hashes, or we called it pound. But yeah, the pound sign or the hash sign. So we want to get a hold of row 1, right? And we are going to get a hold of its inner HTML. I think I might need to do set property. Yeah, I gotta look this up because I'm not doing this with just straight JavaScript. I like doing this on the fly with you guys because you can see how much I don't know. And how much I have to check Google for. Okay. Then one of the best things. Oh, it looks like, yeah, it is just the HTML. So dot HTML, and then I say row template. I don't need semicolons. All right, so here I said was, hey, jQuery, go get me that the first row, right? Go get me the element with ID row 1, and set its HTML to this variable, right? And I'll save that, and let's see if it actually works. Probably not. Hey, there we go. All right, so that easy, right? Now we can start doing things to build that. Whoops. Okay. Because we can, we've got all this repetition in here. So let's say that we said, okay, we need to do a red cell. Okay. We've got red cell, red cell, red cell, red cell over and over and over again in here. So let's take this chunk, okay, and we're gonna do a variable here that is, and in fact, actually, it's not going to be a variable. Well, I'll start with a variable, and then we'll make it most modern. Okay, so
More better.
var cell 1 gets this jazz.
It's jazz. Are you sure it's not like classical?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Slow jazz. All right. So
What if it was?
we're gonna see we're missing a we're missing row 1 or element or cell 1, right? So let's go back over here and let's add it back into our template. And we go $. Now notice everything gets ugly when I do that, right? Because it's expecting actual JavaScript to be in here now. So I put cell 1, save it, refresh it, and there's my cell back. Okay? But this isn't much. Like if I just break it apart into a bunch of variables, that doesn't buy me a lot, right?
There are
'Cause-
better ways to use your dollar.
Yes. You know, because I could do, the next thing I could do is I could say, all right, cool, here's cell 1, 3. Let's get rid of that. And then let me just change this to a 3. We're going to see cell 3 disappear, right? Or cell 1, 3 disappear. We add them back. $cell 1, 3. Right? Now we're in like pedantic land. Okay. Where we're being, that's just silly. Okay. But when I have repetition like this, I can solve that repetition using a function. Okay. So let's say if I had a function called cell, and we'll call it cell, and it's going to take 2 values. It's row num and it's cell num.
Why are they numb? Are they cold or something?
Maybe they're in pain.
You know, maybe. And you could also just be X and Y, you know, but row and cell are probably a little bit better. And that actually brings up a good point. You know, using abbreviations, and you have to use abbreviations very sparingly in your code. Okay. Now, using an abbreviation like num is fairly common because it's, you know, people use num for number a lot. But be very careful. You know, if you have a variable that you would like to be 4 or 5 words long, well, just probably put 4 or 5 words. Okay. Rather than having a whole bunch of abbreviations. Okay, you end up with a long variable name, but usually it's more clear. Okay, but that's a side point. All right, so we've got.
So a 1,000-word essay on what it is.
Yes, I wouldn't recommend that. I think there is a limit to how long an identifier can be in JavaScript. So we're going to return this. Okay, and so down here, let's say we do. Cell. Well, actually, first, let's make it go away so that we know that we made a change that actually causes. So let's hide. All right, cell 1's missing, or 1 is missing. So cell 1. Save that. Refresh it. There's our cell back. Okay. So now we should be able to get rid of this. We can do this for all the red cells right now. You should, Amy, you should tell your mom that we replaced all our red cells today. But
Did you put some like blood cells?
1, 3, 1, 5, 1, 7. Save, refresh, make sure it still works. All right, so now we've got something that's a lot simpler and has a lot less repetition in it. Okay, so if we wanted to say change the class of those red cells to actually be white cells, right? Because we've been calling them red cells even though they look white, we could easily change them.
Maybe we're just colorblind.
So maybe we're just colorblind. I don't know if there's a red-white colorblind.
I'm sure
but,
there is if you look hard enough.
So so then we have to decide whether or not we want to use one function to do red and white cells, or if we want, I'm sorry, like white and black cells or red and black cells, like, or if we should use two different functions. And I think that's, you can kind of go either way on that, okay? But probably using a single function is going to be simpler because it allows you to loop through more easily, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say, let's try to do one of these black cells, okay? And add the things that we need in there. So let's just say, I'm going to teach you guys you guys know what modulus is? No? Anybody take algebra yet?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you guys did modulus?
The question is not if we took it, but if we remember
All right,
it.
so clearly nobody remembers mod from algebra. Mod is it's very similar to the remainder operator, okay? Which simply says, if I divide something by something else, what's the remainder? Okay, so it's used very commonly to determine parity, in other words, or to determine even odd. Okay, if I divide something by 2, do I get 0 or 1? Okay, and that is exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to do, we're going to take the cell number and we're going to mod it by 2, right, to see if we have an even or an odd cell, and we'll use that to make a decision about what we want this to look like. Okay, so first off, we'll say console.log. I highly recommend using log statements liberally. I tend to be a conservative, but when it comes to log statements, I'm a liberal. Okay,
What kind of log is this one? Is it from an oak tree?
it is. It is an oak log.
It's a good tree.
Writing
But you're typing, not writing.
boom, boom. Ronum. Cell number. All right, so let's save that. Just make sure that my console logging is showing up the way I expect it to be. Yep, there you go. Writing cell 11, 13, 15, 17. Okay, so and I'll put with here. Cell number. This is the mod operator in JavaScript. Mod 2. All right. So I'm just going to log that out, and we should see a bunch of 1s show up. Yep. Okay, which means that they're odd. Okay.
They're not odd, they're special.
Yeah. So we can do var odd.
At least they're not fat.
Actually, I'm going to do it
Like whatever.
var odd gets, we'll say true is the default. I'm going to do this a simple way. And then if cell num mod 2 equals 0, that means it's even, right? Then, and actually I should probably do even. People understand even. It's good to think positively in life and in coding, right? And between even and odd, even is the positive, the more one that's considered more positive. You know, the reason why I say it's good to think positively is if you end up in situations, if you start thinking like negate, the more you negate things, you end up with all these like double and triple negatives, and it gets hard to wrap your head around it,
The opposite of the opposite.
So-
My head doesn't
Yeah.
wrap around anything.
So if you said like not odd, right? Not odd is harder to understand than not even. That's not even. Oh, okay, because we tend to say that. We don't ever usually say that's not odd. Okay. So
But it is not odd.
it is not odd. You're right. I'm not saying it's not correct. I'm just saying. So we're going to start about the default will be is it true? Is it even? And then if cell mod 2 is equal to 1, then we know that this is actually even equals false. Okay, so it's not even. All right, and then I'll put over here, which is
So which is even?
and even equals, and we'll put our value in there, and let's see what we get over here. It should say even is false, right? All right. So I can get rid of this. I got my little output statement. It's going to give me some help as we go along. And now let's try to do a cell 1, 2, okay? Which is going to look wrong. We'll just comment that out for now. Refresh the page, and we'll end up with 2 white cells there, okay? Which doesn't look how we want it, but I am getting that it's even, okay? So I can say, I'm going to do this real quick. If here, actually no, if even, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do that. And for this, I will return
What did he take? You're asking him to return that.
You know, Caleb, if I can teach you software, that'll be great. But if I can teach you like better jokes, that would be amazing. All right, so there's cell 1, 2. All right, let's get rid of that. All right, so if it is, if it's even, I want to, this is not formatting right there. If it's even, I'm going to return basically cell 1, 2. So all my even cells are going to look like cell 1, 2. Or if it's odd, I'm going to return this. Okay. So let's go ahead and see if we end up with something that looks rightish. And we do.
What about left?
Okay. Rightish. Correctish. All right. So we could replace all of our, we can now do, all right, and then and we've got a 2 already, so we need 4, 6, and 8. Refresh this, and we shouldn't see it change. Right? Looks right. It should still function the way I want it to once the board finishes loading. Yep, still functions the way that it's supposed to. Okay? So that's all well and good. Now, one problem that we have, though, if we inspect this, is that this is cell 1, 4, yet it's labeled cell 1, 2, right? So we need to go back in there and we need to fix that. Okay? And actually, as we look at these other ones, they're all labeled cell 1, 1, right? But we know how to fix that, right? Because these are just JavaScript templates, okay? So this is going to be the cell number, cell num, and this will be the cell number. And let's go look. So we don't notice any difference. But if we look at the generated code, we got 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 8. Okay?
Yay.
All right, so that's all good. Now, do I see any repetition? Yes. Jesse's like shaking his head. No, no. I'm like, yes. He's like, yes. Shake his head up and down. You know, in I think it's Greece, they shake their head left and right to say yes, and they nod to say no. Yeah.
That's
So-
confusing.
I know. I read.
That's weird.
At least I read that. I read it in a travel book, and there was the guy was telling a story of him. He was hitchhiking in Greece, and he was standing. He was like he picked a great place, and it was like really easy for people to pick him up, and he was like making eye contact, and he looked like he didn't stink, you know, and like everyone's going by, and they're all shaking their head at him, you know, and he stood there for a couple of hours, like not getting in people's cars, you know, and then he realized that they were all like, he's like, man, Greek people are jerks. So turns out they're not. Greek people are great. They want to pick up hitchhikers. All right. So there you go. JavaScript templates. So the next thing, we do have some repetition here, and that is this cell over and over and over again, right? I need to do. I could loop through from 1 to 8, right, and build this string, right, rather than, you know, but that's going to require row template to actually be something like a function, row template. All right, and then this function I won't need to probably take anything for.
You know, I heard that math is
R,
required in computers, and
0.
I mean that makes sense considering all these functions and variables
Yeah.
and stuff.
Oh, and you're actually going from 1 to less than or equal to 8. And we want to do I plus plus. All right. And then let's say we had variable return value. And it's just going to be just a regular old string to start with. And we're going to say return value
Are you sure it's string and not twine?
gets return value plus cell, yeah, cell 1 comma I. Oh, there we go. Save that and return value that. Oh, I need to return value. That's a bad name for this. Row string. All right, so I start with an empty string for the row, and then I'm looping through all the numbers from 1 to 8, and I'm just saying, okay, call cell and stick that value onto the string. Okay, does that make sense?
Are you sure their phone's charged?
Yes, yes, their cell phone is charged. That was actually halfway funny. So
So if I make another joke that's halfway funny, does that make
then it
the
would be
whole
one
joke?
funny joke. Yep, yep. So console.log. We're just going to output row string every time to see what it looks like as it gets built. Okay, and then we will. Oh, you know what? Why use I here, right? Why not use something that makes a little more sense, like cell num, right? Cell num equal to 1, less than or equal to 8, right? So when you can use a semantic, the word semantic is important. When you can use a semantic variable name, use it. All right, so let's see what we get. Now we will have a problem there because that is not that. So let's go to board.html is where we did that. Okay, and then we need to say row template. It's now a function. All right. So let's see. You guys see what I did there? Because that row template was a variable and I turned it into a function. So I had to get rid of the variable and then I just added these parentheses to call the function. So let's make sure it works. It seems to output what I'm expecting. And look at this. I can see writing cell 1 1 evens false. You know, so I'm seeing all the output from that. But, which is a little confusing. I'm actually going to hide that for a second to clear up. Let me hide this output. And then, so that one shouldn't be putting anything out. Yep. And then, every time.
Oh no! Oh my gosh!
Log.
Oh my god!
All right. All right. So we can watch every time I see those dashes, I'm creating the cell. Oh, no, I'm not. See, you have to understand looping if you're going to do this, Erskine. All right. There we go. Every time I go through the loop. Okay, so the first time I've just got that first cell. Okay, the next time I've got this next cell, and I keep going on and on and on and on and on. Okay, until I end up with this row. And if I go inspect that row, it should have all the right row numbers, right? It seems to function the way it, I don't have a bunch of repetition. If I go look at my template, now I've got a bunch of ugly output statements in here, so let's just get rid of those for. So here's where I build a row, okay? And one of the things about that, like, it's not as easy to tell what I'm doing because I'm not looking at HTML, right? So it's a little harder to see. I'm looking at JavaScript, I'm reading JavaScript, but now it's not. I'm not. I can use this over and over and over again, okay, to do to build the whole board. Does that make sense? It's definitely more complex. That's one of the reasons why I remember when we were first building this, I'm like, hey, I'm showing you guys how to do this quick and dirty. Okay, and I just used cut and paste, and I would pop, 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 and just pasted it all in there, and then changed all the numbers manually using search and replace and things like that. Okay, there is a balance when it comes to reusability because reusable code. This is reusable code. I could use this right now. I can only use this for every other row, right? Because it's going to be wrong for the other rows. So we'd have to think through what does it mean? How would I build a row? How would I build row 2? Okay, but there's a balance between reusability and readability because often code that's really readable. Now sometimes it means the same thing, right? Sometimes reusability and readability are the same thing. In this case, they kind of counteract, and there's a balance. It's like being minimalist or expressive. Like sometimes they mean the same thing in art, or sometimes they're different, and you want to make the right choice based on the situation. Okay, so that takes us to the end of our time. Okay, but I've showed you guys how to do row 1. So go through and do this, and at least replace row 1.
That's me.
Yeah. All right. The Imperial March.
Awesome.
Okay. That, if your checkerboard would do that when you first open the page and maybe not
I was
stop
thinking like when someone
the whole
wins.
time you're playing. No, I
It
think
should go after
actually
someone wins.
every time
Someone
every time the TIE
wins.
fighters lose a piece, it should go no like when so. And then there's a pretty famous scene where I can't remember who it was. It was like Red 1 or Red 5 or somebody that got like blowed up in the TIE fighters.
Blowed up.
Yeah. And so you could play that every time you lose a TIE fighter. So, but anyhow, we digress. We don't want to get into annoying music and sounds just yet. We'll do those later. All right, go make your board more reusable. Okay. All right. Cool beans.
Queens.
Does that mean we're making it so it can be
Oh,
recycled?
hot beans.
Well,
I like
better.
hot beans better. actually.
Yes.
So it's
No,
recycled.
recycling and reducing and reusing are all different things.
My bad.
All right. I am stopping my presenting.